everybody, CT Hippo here. Back in 2018, I snorkeled the site of the former Blodel Donovan Lumber Company's Larsen mill on Lake Whatcom looking for the wreck of the steamer Marguerite. I found what remains of this historic ship, but also quite a bit more. In amongst the snags and discarded machinery was a large sunken dock extending further out into the lake than I could free dive. Since I was there for a shipwreck, I reluctantly moved on and eventually found my target. That dock section stuck with me though, and I started researching the history of the site. Our story begins in 1898 when J.H. Blodel met with J.J. Donovan and Peter Larsen to found the Lake Whatcom Logging Company. Blodel was then manager of the Sandwich Lake Lumber and Mill Company and developer of Lake Whatcom's Blue Canyon coal mine, while Donovan was chief engineer of the Fairhaven Southern Railway. Together they assembled 18 men and a horse and began logging the steep shores around the mine. Realizing that the milled lumber was more valuable than raw timber, the trio established a mill at the outlet of Lake Whatcom in 1801. The problem in those days was getting goods and people from one end of Lake Whatcom to the other. A branch line of the Northern Pacific Railway ran from Wickersham through Park to Blue Canyon, where it ended at the coal mine. Up until now, rail cars with passengers and coal were loaded on barges at Blue Canyon and floated up Lake to Silver Beach, and then hauled down the steep hill into Bellingham. The same year that the new mill opened, tracks were completed up the east side of the lake from Blue Canyon to Silver Beach, which ended the barge service. Still, logs were hauled by small tugboats such as the Charlotte, and most cargo and passengers moved up and down the lake on a fleet of small steamboats, several of which we've explored on this channel. The main terminal for these boats continued to be at the Larsen Mill, where passengers could transfer to streetcars to complete their journey into town. Business at the mill boomed, and by 1906 the mill was producing 45 million board feet of lumber, with plans to double that. The easy timber lasted until 1918, and the mill operated until 1946. As it was closing, the owners donated a 12-acre tract to the city to become Blodel Donovan Park. In 2024, I returned to the lake with scuba gear to explore the dock that I discovered in the previous trip. I now believe this would have been the steamboat dock where tugs and passenger steamers would have tied up. The lake bed is absolutely covered in woody debris ranging from planks to massive logs, never to be milled. The dock itself is about 10 feet wide with large beams to keep people from falling off. The structure stands about 4 feet off the lake bed and is hollow, with what I assume were inspection holes every so often in its surface. It's hard to judge length underwater, but I would guess it is 150 to 200 feet long, with an even more massive beam at its end. Comparing the historical photographs to what we see under the water leads to a couple of interesting possibilities. One is about what we see, and one is about what we do not. Starting with what we don't see. I only have 2 elevated photos of the mill in operation, but neither seem to show the dock we're looking at. This picture, probably taken in the teens or 20s, shows a single large dock just in front of the distinctive sawdust burner. The second photo, taken in 1945 or 46 as the land was being prepared for donation, shows that same dock, now much smaller, in the position we now know as the log fence. Neither shows a large structure just south of the log fence, yet clearly it exists. The other tantalizing clue from the historic photos is this mechanism, used to raise and lower the apron on the barge slip to accommodate changing lake levels. The same mechanism appears in this photo, showing a tugboat holding a barge load of cars in place as it is tied up. You remember that large broken gear I found? I can't say for sure, but I now suspect it may be the same gear we see in this photo. In a previous video, I talked about the cycle of discovery, where research leads to fieldwork, which leads to more research to understand what we saw. This site is very much one of those places where I will have to keep going back as I try to understand its history. I hope you'll continue to follow along on the journey.